infrastructure, including roads, bridges, airports, railways, and information technology, is not only good in terms of immediate job creation, it acts as a catalyst to the movement of goods and services across the country. A recent World Bank study estimates that sub-Saharan Africa infrastructure deficit, especially in power and transportation, is costing us about 2 percentage points of GDP growth per annum. This study also indicates that about $93 billion per year will be needed to tackle the region's infrastructural challenges. Although Nigeria has relatively better infrastructure than many of her African peers, our core stock of infrastructure is estimated at about 26% of GDP. Given that most middle-income countries of Nigeria's size have core infrastructure of about 70% of GDP, the ADB estimates that we have an infrastructure funding gap of $300 billion. Obviously, our fiscal resources alone will be inadequate to finance this gap. Therefore, it is critical that we begin to consider innovative mechanisms and ideas to do so. For example, we need to attract private capital into this space. I recall that sometime in 2012, the federal government signed an MOU with General Electric to develop power, rail, healthcare infrastructure. This included the construction of power plants that can generate up to 10,000 megawatts over a decade, some specialist hospitals and diagnostics medical centers, and 200 locomotives to expand our rail systems. We need to explore opportunities for public-private partnership, for similar opportunities in infrastructure projects that could offer lucrative returns to investors and help drive economic growth across the country. Pursuing growth-enhancing fiscal policy. More than ever before, it is now critical to concentrate our best efforts on ensuring that fiscal policy is targeted at improving productivity of our labor, increasing disposable income for workers, and deploying resources to creating an enabling environment for investors. We need to look at how fiscal policy can help household consumption and business investments. These two make up more than 85% of Nigeria's GDP by expenditure. For example, we need to consider how to increase disposable income for households, cut red tape for businesses, create incentives for new investors, to mention a few. In this regard, I'm happy to note that the 2016 budget addresses some of these, but urgency of implementation is now doubly important and needed. Paying closer attention to agriculture and agribusiness. Whatever we do to jumpstart growth in Nigeria, we just cannot afford to ignore this sector at all. Agriculture remains the largest employer of labor in Nigeria and contributes about 24.2% of our GDP. In addition, a good share of demand for FX today go directly to importing agricultural produce. So the CBN has both a direct and indirect rationale to ensure that this sector is revived in a significant way. In this regard, we are gratified that the CBN's Anchor Borrower program, together with other initiatives like the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme and the NIRSAL program, are proving to be successful in several states of Nigeria. To date, the bank has committed close to 23 billion naira in the Anchor Borrowers program, with active participation across 14 states of the Federation. In Kebbi State, over 78,000 smallholder farmers are now cultivating about over 100,000 hectares of rice farms. It is expected that over 1 million metric tons of rice will produce in that state alone this year. When considered against the backdrop that Nigeria consumes about 6.1 million metric tons annually and only produces 2.5 million metric tons, it will go a long way to make rice available in our homes. The CBN remains committed to doing more in the identified crops, such as rice, maize, sorghum, tomatoes, cassava, cocoa, cotton, dairy, palm produce, and groundnut. Following Mr. President's directive, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, the Governor of Kebbi State, and I have been on an assessment tour of wet season rice output across the country. We have so far visited Anambra State, Niger, Jigawa, Kebbi, and Cross River states. This tour will continue across other states of the country, after which a comprehensive report will be presented to the Mr. President. But I'm delighted to note that so far we have witnessed very good output across the country. In addition to the actions of the CBN, we also have to consider attracting selected private sector leaders who will commit themselves to invest in certain agricultural produce to a large scale, while government may need to give some incentives to encourage them to invest. We also need to find ways to make land titling much easier, especially for smallholder farmers. This can immediately result in converting dead land assets of these farmers into valuable, tradable, and exchangeable assets that will unlock the flow of finance to the rural agricultural economy that absorbs 60 to 70% of Nigeria's population, including largely the youths. In this regard, the Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agricultural Lending, NISL, can assist with technical knowledge and deployment of relevant GIS and satellite imaging that will realize this within a short period of time. Exploring opportunities for more revenue. There are several ways we can raise additional revenue to finance the increased expenditure that is needed to engender fast and sustainable growth in the economy. I think we can consider introducing a negligible telecommunication surcharge to be entirely borne by the initiator of a call. In order to protect the poor and vulnerable amongst us, we could structure such tax to only take effect after the 3rd to the 5th minute of talk. Some analyses have indicated that government could earn over 100 billion naira per annum from this alone. Obviously, this surcharge will mainly be borne by the middle and upper class people, since I do not know many poor people who make calls for more than 5 minutes. We could also consider introducing minimum property taxes across the country. This not only raises money for the government, but also could be a veritable weapon against corruption, since it creates a database of who really owns homes in this country. Another option to consider would be to fully implement the 2003 Cabotage Act. This act stipulates that all cargoes and passengers in the inland and coastal waters be transported by ships and ferries built, owned, and crewed and manned by Nigerians. Contrary to the requirement of this act, there are several foreign-owned vessels providing shipping services locally. Out of about 600 ships that operate within our waters, only about 6 of them are owned by Nigerians and are mostly idle in violation of the act. Industry sources suggest that Nigeria may be losing as much as 2 trillion naira annually from this anomaly. In addition to raising revenue, a full implementation of the act could also spur job creation, capacity building, and significant backward integration. Pursuing non-oil exports. From preliminary analysis of global trade trends and discussions with potential trade partners, it is now increasingly evident that Nigeria can benefit significantly from tapping into the market for certain goods which are in high demand. For example, the demand for halal meat and sesame across the Gulf Cooperation Council countries is huge. In fact, we have credible information that the Saudis may need up to 120,000 heads of frozen goat or sheep per week from Nigeria. Similarly, the demand for cashew nuts and shea nut butter across the world is rising. Nigeria has comparative advantage in all these products and can quickly tap into the vacuum created from the sharp fall in supply of these products from their erstwhile major suppliers. From this, we can earn foreign exchange to bolster our reserves while also creating jobs and engendering broad-based economic growth. Pursuing import-reducing policies. In view of the fact that oil prices would remain low for a long period of time, it is clear to us that FX revenue inflows will remain low for some time to come, with relatively low FX reserves for a while. Given this scenario, we need to take bold and decisive actions at fundamentally changing the structure of our economy. Of course, monetary policy alone cannot achieve this, but it must do its part. Throughout this speech, I have talked about the damaging effects of Nigeria's unsustainable propensity to import. In line with Winston Churchill's admonition to never let a good chance go to waste, the CBN believes that it is high time we started looking inwards and stopped supporting the importation of items that we can produce locally using Nigeria's hard-earned foreign exchange. This implies that importers who may want to bring in such goods or services will have to source their foreign exchange outside banks or BDCs. It is important to remind everyone that the exchange rate is simply a price that is determined by the forces of demand and supply. Having adjusted the currency in response to supply shortfalls,